This is Katherine Cespedes, and you are listening to Yogini from the Block, where we talk about taking spiritual practices and spiritual principles off of the yoga mat and into our real lives. You can listen to this bi-weekly podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play Music, and anywhere that you catch your podcasts. Welcome to Yogini from the Block. This is Katherine, and this is actually episode 18. So welcome to episode 18, titled Practice Makes Perfect, subtitled What the Mind Creates, It Can Also Recreate. And today I have my wonderful producer here, John Beaton.
Hi there. That's all I have to say. Just hi there.
So I'll say it for him. What a wonderful generic time of the day it is.
You got it. Good for you. She's been fully indoctrinated into
the Beaton lingo.
Well, yeah, it's that. I got it from somebody else because there actually is nothing new.
We'll talk about that next time. Yeah.
You can challenge me on it if you want.
Yeah, man. I can totally bring that up next time. I have something set up and planned for today, so we're going to continue going. But I do want to thank you if you are listening to this podcast. And I just want you to know how much I appreciate you, how much gratitude I have for you. I am knowing that these podcasts are not only fun for me to do, but they're also fun for you to listen to. Let me know what works for you. Let me know if you have any questions. Let me know if there are any topics that you want me to cover. You can send me an email at yoginifromtheblock@gmail.com. Make sure to subscribe. This way you are always in the know whenever a podcast comes out. So I'm going to go ahead and begin. So practice makes perfect, permanent, right? So the saying really goes, practice makes perfect.
And then I had said that perfect practice makes perfect, and that got her all screwed up. So we're just going to roll with what?
Practice makes permanent.
And that works.
Yes. And this I really picked up from my band teacher in middle school, was it? Well, I had the same band teacher from middle school to high school. And
well, hang on. What instrument were you playing?
The flute.
Oh, gorgeous.
Yeah, I played the flute from 6th grade to my senior year. Mm-hmm. So he would say that practice really makes permanent. So if you're practicing, he would tell us, go home, practice this, and please pay attention to X, Y, and Z. Because if you're not paying attention to X, Y, and Z, you're going to show up tomorrow and play it the same way you played it today.
So were you going to tell us what X, Y, and Z is?
X, Y, and Z, just tuning our instrument, making sure that it was tuned from the very jump, listening to it. Really,
do you tune it to an A440?
No, we would tune it. I think at that point was to a C.
To a C, okay.
Yeah.
Well, this is for another podcast. I'm sorry, I won't interrupt you again.
So he would tell us to practice and to just focus on what we were doing, not just to sit there and play the notes, really, right? So this kind of goes into what I'm doing right now with PRAC and with Financial Freedom, which are 2 classes that I'm taking at Seaside. And I know I talk about Seaside all the time. It's just that I love what I do, and I love my job, and I love my community. And I love that I get to learn, and I love that I get to talk to people about what I'm learning so that I can continue to grow. It's not just what's in the classroom, it's what we do thereafter. And right now we have this practice that we are doing where we are letting go of old beliefs. And it's so powerful. I only did it once yesterday, so we're basically doing this affirmation with our arms. So we use our arms, and we have to do it 70 times a day for
That's 70?
70.
Wow.
Yeah. So when I did it yesterday, by like number 30, I was like, this is stupid. Like, this is really stupid. Like, why am I doing this? And someone walked into my office, and this is why I love what I do, because she walked in and she knew exactly what I was doing. And she just sat there and waited for me to finish. And then we laughed for a while because I think she felt how like stupid I felt to be doing this. And then somewhere around number 50 or 60, I started feeling like just gratitude. I was like, oh my goodness, I'm letting go of this story. I'm letting it go. Like, I've practiced it for so long that it's permeated through my life.
The story you were telling yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And by the end, I really, by the number 70th time of repetition.
She has a big smile on her face, folks.
I was so happy. Like, I slowed it down because I really wanted to feel it. I really wanted to, like, milk it for all it was worth. That last one. And I realized that this is a practice. What I'm doing is practicing every single day. And I also just started doing my actual yoga practice because I feel like every so often I come back and then I leave it and then I come back. And at this point, I'm like, no, this is, I need this in my body. I need this in my body as much as I need it for my spirit, as much as I need it for everything else. So again, just practicing it so that it's really become a part of me, a part of like every single cell in my body and just being. So to create this topic for today was a little difficult because I didn't know what to talk about. I was like, we've got this 70 affirmations, 7 times 7, for 7 days. Like, we could talk about that. We could talk about releasing old stories. We could talk about so many things that I'm learning. We could talk about sexuality. We talked about sexuality for 3 hours yesterday in prac. And what it came down to was how much we practice these stories that may or may not serve us and how permanent they become. So I really did some thinking around this. And the first thing that came up for me was the people that go off to do the Olympics. So, athletes who train for hours and then they end up going into the Olympics. And then I started wondering, how long do you have to actually practice? Like, how many hours, how much time are they spending on this? And I've heard this before, that it takes about 10,000 hours to master anything. And now I broke this up. And 10,000 hours is about 5 to 6 years. So it takes 5 to 6 years to master anything, which I thought was quite interesting because for most careers, when you go to school, get your PhD, it takes about 6 to 7 years, right? About 10,000 hours. You're mastering what you're doing. So then my curiosity goes into these deep holes of like, I want to know more. So this is what I discovered was that the average elite athlete trains 6 hours a day, 6 days a week, 12 months a year. And I did the calculations on that. That's with no breaks, not including holidays, none of that. It's 1,728 hours a year.
Okay. So one thing I know is there's about, if I have this right, 2,002 work hours in a year.
Yep, for 8 hours.
Yeah.
Yep, for 8 hours. Yeah, you do have it right. And that's actually, yeah, I calculated that as well. And I figured in about 5 years, you have 10,000 hours or more. Mm-hmm. Right? So in 5 years of working, you have accumulated a master's. Like, you are the master in your field. Mm-hmm. If you're practicing in a way that is effective, efficient, and works.
Can I interject something?
Yeah, go ahead.
So since 2004, I've logged well over 4,000 hours listening to educational podcasts. Does that make me a master? 4,000
hours?
Still working on it, huh?
Yeah. You're halfway there, though. You are halfway there. But that's educational content that you're listening to,
it's
right?
It's not entertainment.
That's not, that doesn't include the amount of information that you have done or the amount of work that you have done to look up information in regards to podcasts in general.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
That doesn't include the amount of hours that you have put into creating podcasts. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, in 4 years, you have become a master because I'm just thinking about the other hours that you have spent on just podcasting in general.
Yep. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm good with these numbers now. Financial freedom is definitely helping me. But then I also thought about, careers like doctors and lawyers. And I just really focused in on doctors. And it takes, for med school, it takes 5 years pre-med, right? And then there's 4 years of medical school. And then there's 3 to 7 years for their residency. So this is the amount of years that they're using, that they're putting into their practice. And this, once again, when you look at the numbers And it's funny because before financial freedom, I had this idea that I don't know numbers at all, which is a practice of mine to say. I've been practicing this for so long, and I'm like, no, I'm actually really good with numbers. Whenever someone says something, I'm like, no, I don't think that's right, but I don't know. And I almost take that, I kind of make it like I don't know what I'm talking about, but I do. And I feel like...
So you're starting to know.
Right.
Not know about, but know and embrace.
The knowing.
Yes.
Right. And acknowledge myself for knowing. And not discredit. That was the word I was looking for. Not discredit myself for any which way. But that was a practice. Again, and if you think about the amount of time that we practice doing these things that do not serve us, like saying that I don't know something, how many hours would I say that I've done that? And how am I mastering that I don't know? Right? So it's not only practicing things that we do want to do, it's about thinking about how much do we practice what we don't want to do and how that's becoming permanent, right? That's what I've been thinking about. So this whole day, this is what I have kind of been processing in my mind. And so I looked up the definitions of perfect. And practice. You messed me up, John. I looked up practice, right? And it comes from the Latin origins of practicare, which is to carry out. So to practice is to carry out or perform a particular activity, method, or custom, habitually or regularly. The habitual part is the part that really caught my attention, because to practice something doesn't necessarily mean that you are knowingly doing it. It's something that's just a part of your day. Like driving, it's a part of your day. Taking mass transit, it's a part of your day. So you're practicing those things. You're actually putting it, performing, carrying it out, right? And then there is perfect, which is, again, Latin. Per is through, and manare, which is remain. So to remain to the end, which is permanent, right? So... here is what I really want to talk about, how we practice these things and we make them permanent into our lives. In this whole course of financial freedom, what we're doing is that we're looking at these passengers, as they call it, which are really false beliefs, if you really think about it and you put it into some simple terms. We look at the false beliefs that we are living with and we recognize them for what they are. And then we think about where did they come from? Where are they stemming from? And now this is really personal for me, but I'm going to share it. What I realized was that I have a fear of debt because I am always trying to feed my children that I do not have. Right?
You're going to have to say a little more about that.
Okay, so I realized that my false belief is that I'm like head over, like just overwhelmed with debt. And what I realized was that is because I'm trying to have enough money for when my children get here that I can fully support them, and not only support them financially, but also emotionally, and just be able to physically take care of them, physically be there, quality time. That's the kind of money that I'm looking for, but money cannot buy that.
It reminds me, it sounds like you're wanting to create safety consciousness.
No, I don't want to create safety consciousness. It is safety consciousness. That is a safety consciousness. But what I want to create is heart consciousness for them so that they don't feel like they have to be in safety consciousness because I don't have enough. Does that make sense? So a few weeks ago, John and I at separate times took a course, Thrilled to Be Alive, which I believe I spoke about. It's facilitated by Jake Eagle, and two of the terms is safety consciousness, which is how to take care of, right? How to take care of yourself, and basically allowing yourself to be in this space of just safety. There are conditions around you where you just much rather just be in safety. And so we don't take risks. And so we don't step outside of that. And so we think that we have a lot more issues than we really do because we're trying to protect ourselves and shield ourselves from the world and the conditions around us. Would you say that that's...
Yes.
Okay. And then there's love, heart consciousness, which is really about love. It's really about knowing that you are protected, knowing that you are loved, knowing that you can reach out and you can be present in this moment, not worrying about the past, not worrying about the future, but being here in this moment, to create something that you would love to see in your life, something that you would love to see in your world, something that you would love to experience.
Yeah. So, that is more about the presence. And the safety consciousness can be in the past, the future. Very little of it's actually in the present.
Right.
But heart consciousness is pretty much totally, as much as possible.
Right.
Presence.
So this has really been us practicing, right? In different classroom settings, in different parts of the world, but we're practicing. And so what I realize is that not only are we practicing these limiting beliefs that really do not serve very much for us and what we want to create.
Or anybody else.
Right. And we're also practicing things that we do want to see in the world. So practicing doesn't always make perfect, but it does make permanent because it permeates and it remains until we end it, until we recognize it and we see it and we could say, oh, I don't want that anymore. I'm good. Because at one point, that belief did serve me. And at one point, it did help me. And at one point, it did miracles. It created miracles for me in my life. And I did so much.
And so you have gratitude for it.
I am grateful and I love it. And I love that I can recognize it. And now I'm done practicing it. And that's really what I wanted to get to, that practicing, that notion, that knowing, that understanding that what we are doing is habitual. It's habitual and we're practicing something either that we love or that we don't love. So that I would really love to challenge you if you're listening right now. Well, if you're listening, then you're listening and I am challenging you to think about what you're practicing. Think about what you're doing. Think about, is this something that I want to continue thinking? Is this something that I want to continue living? Just taking prac alone, I have done so much reading and going out into the world. I went to an AA course and there was this woman there who talked about these loops in our mind, right? So we practice these stories in our mind about something that's happening in our lives and we continue watching this movie and it keeps looping. And for these women, what it was creating this desire and need to drink. And what I noticed is that we all have a tendency to go to something when these movies start, and that's our practice, right? So we see this movie, it starts playing. So what do? Do you avoid it? Do you fight, flee, or faint, right? These are the three reactions. Do you run away or do you get angry? Do you have a rampage? Do you start cussing at everyone and banging books around? What is your practice? When this movie starts playing, what is the practice and how do we handle that? And so that's my challenge to you, is to recognize what is your practice and how are we handling that? Is it among the fight or flight or the faint? Because there is fainting as well, when you play dead. So these things are and were very necessary for a significant amount of time, for however long we had to practice them. And if you're listening to this, then I'm suggesting that it's okay to let it go. I am suggesting that it's okay to set it free. And what I would really, really love for you to hear, if nothing else from this podcast, is that it's okay to find help. It is okay. It is actually best to find help, because a doctor didn't become a doctor by reading by himself. Not this day and age. That's illegal. You need to take classes. You need to take certifications. An athlete didn't become an athlete by just practicing in their bedroom, by just practicing in their school gym by themselves. A minister did not become a minister by just reading the Bible. And all these people had people that could coach them, that could guide them. And so these things, whatever it may be, there are people, there are groups, there are communities. What are you practicing? What is it that you're making permanent? What is it that we're going to just stop? We're going to nip in the bud. That's it. You served me. You did what you needed to do, and I release you. And I'm going to release you by doing, you fill in the blanks. If you are listening, I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank you for your time. I appreciate the love and the support that I receive from you. If you have any questions, feel free to send me an email at yoginifromtheblog@gmail.com. And I am knowing that wherever you're heading, wherever you're going, you are safe, you are loved, and you are protected. And I'll talk to you soon.